Good morning. It's Wednesday, April 26th. And yesterday morning when I awoke, after I released my rant, I took time to watch Joe Biden's presidential announcement. And what he stated correctly. And yes, he was an old man. And I had previously ranted that it's time we got some young blood at the White House. And young blood coming up to run this country. But right now we're stuck with Joe Biden. And he hasn't done a terrible job, and he pointed out some very important things in his brief 1.5 minute, I don't want to call it a speech, it was more like a statement. And he opens his statement with pictures of the riot on January 6th. And what could be more appropriate than that? Showing how poorly this country has reacted to his winning of the election, and how poorly we have continued to react to the things that are going on in this country, and how we as a nation can allow a criminal to run for president again. There's a lot of things that are wrong in this country, and Joe pointed several of them out in this video. But his main thrust was the fact that we have to get ourselves together, and he's going to try his hardest to do it. And even though his approval rating is very low for a president, it's low enough to consider not running. But I think Joe Biden is a man who believes that he can do the job. And from what I have seen in these 2 years, he has done a creditable job in some terrible situations. Remember, he's been fighting a majority of Republicans, even though their majority is very slim, and it's very slim because Joe was able to pull that off. He was able to convince people to vote Democratic. And of course he had a lot of help from Donald Trump, who put forth one of the poorest groups of candidates ever assembled to try and run this country. So the Republicans got what they paid for, so to speak, because they allowed Trump to put his type of people into the campaign at the last election. So the Republicans are hanging to this country by a thread. And don't forget that one of the threads is this loose cannon George Santos. And I don't want to talk about him because I talked about him yesterday. So Joe's statement reflected what's going on in this country. We're fighting for the soul of America, he said. And what he also said was the question we are facing is whether in the years ahead we will have more freedom or less freedom, more rights or fewer rights. I know what I want the answer to be, and I think you do too. This is not the time to be complacent. That's why I'm running for re-election. Joe's running for re-election because he is afraid of what will happen to this country if he doesn't run and if he doesn't win. And I think we have to look around and recognize the fact that that is the truth. If Joe Biden loses this election to a man like Donald Trump, an indicted criminal, then what does that say about this country, about the people in this country, about the division in this country? So when Joe makes this announcement and puts all doubts to bed about his intentions, and he's ready for a rematch with his 2020 rival, Donald Trump, the very former president. Now, Joe has a so-so legislative record and low approvals right now. Now, that is a conundrum, as his advisors have said so far. It's something that they have been unable to solve. And part of that, I believe, is because he's the oldest president in history. And every time people see him, they recognize the fact that he is not a young man anymore. Even though he has stood up well in these first couple of years, people are afraid. And Joe is the epitome of what's really wrong in this country. There are too many old men in position of power. And I said that the other day, and I will continue to say that until I see some young blood stepping to the front to try and run this country the way it should be run. There are so many things that have to be done in this country. And we have to have somebody that has the strength to do that, to work a 20-hour day when necessary. This is Biden's fourth, and it will be his final presidential campaign. And Biden is making an appeal. When you look at this, he's appealing to the nation's ideals, at least some portion of the nation's ideals. There are many that disagree with Joe Biden. There are many that disagree and don't believe in what Joe Biden stands for. And when we have gun violence running rampant in this country, you can see how poorly we have let this country go to ruin. When anybody can get a gun in many of the states in this country and pretend that they're going to be able to protect themselves, when that is the furthest thing from the truth. And Joe pointed out that the MAGA extremists who are trying to dictate what our healthcare decisions can be like and what women can do with their bodies and how much money women can make. And we're banning books like crazy and telling people who they can love and how they can live. Is that what we want in this country? Do we want to continue banning books? Do we want to hide things that are the reality of life? Do we want to separate people because of their beliefs? No, we don't want to do that. And yet, that's what we're doing. And a contender who has fallen behind, Ron DeSantis, is banning books and doing terrible things to the people in Florida. So let's recognize the fact that if we want true freedom in this country, we cannot allow a Republican to become president. We cannot put further things in the way of our democracy. It's bad enough we're stuck with I don't know what I want to call them, a piss-poor Supreme Court, I'll call them. So while Joe Biden is not the ideal candidate in my mind right now, I have to give him credit for stepping to the plate and trying to get this country straightened out and stating the facts about the shape of this country, trying to wake up America. So I leave you with that this morning. A desperate situation which calls for desperate measures. Have a great day. Bye.